A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. Echoes in the Forest. The kingdom of Ravenspire stretched across valleys and mountains where shifters had ruled for centuries, bound by traditions as old as the moon itself. Stone castles rose from cliffsides, their banners snapping in winds that carried the scent of pine and distant snow. It was a world of hierarchy and bloodlines, where strength determined worth and weakness meant exile or worse. Sibylla crushed dried valerian root between her palms, the earthy scent filling the small cabin she shared with her mother and younger brother. At 22, she had grown accustomed to the weight of being different. Her hands moved with the precision of someone who had spent years learning to be useful in the only way her family could afford. "You are doing it again," Alara said from across the room, her voice carrying that gentle concern Sibylla had heard all her life. Her mother sat by the window, mending a tunic with thread that had been reused too many times. That faraway look. Sibylla blinked, realizing she had paused mid-motion, staring at nothing. "I was just thinking about the herbs we will need before winter comes." It was not entirely a lie, but Alara's dark eyes saw through it anyway. Her mother had always been able to read her too well, perhaps because they shared the same burden of being Omega shifters so weak they barely deserved the title. Alara had not transformed in over a decade, not since Sibylla's father had died trying to prove their family's worth in a hunt that went terribly wrong. "Your sensitivity is stronger today," Alara observed, setting down her sewing. "You feel something in the air, do you not?" Sibylla nodded slowly. That was what her mother called it, this strange awareness that prickled across her skin when something was wrong. While other Omegas could barely sense the presence of their own packmates, Sibylla felt changes in the atmosphere itself, like ripples spreading across water. "It feels heavy," Sibylla admitted, pressing her hand against her chest where an odd tightness had settled, like something is pressing down on the entire forest. Before Alara could respond, Torin burst through the door, his 12-year-old face flushed with exertion. Unlike Sibylla, who could at least transform despite the pain and difficulty it caused, Torin had never managed to shift at all. It made him an outcast among boys his age, most of whom had received their wolves years ago. "The bells are ringing at the castle," he panted, gripping the doorframe. "Everyone is talking about it in the village. They are saying the Alpha King is dead." The words hit Sibylla harder than they should have. She had never met Godric personally, of course. Wolves like her were kept far from royalty. Yet the tightness in her chest suddenly made sense. That pressure she had been feeling all morning. The death of an Alpha King destabilized every shifter in his territory, but this felt like more than that. Alara stood abruptly, her face pale. "When did it happen?" "This morning, they say. The funeral will be in 3 days. Torin moved further into the cabin, his young features troubled. "Mother, does this mean Prince Calder will become Alpha King now?" The name sent a jolt through Sibylla that she could not explain. She had not heard it spoken aloud in 12 years. Not since that day in the forest when they had been ripped apart. She had been 10 years old, gathering herbs near the stream, when she found the boy bleeding among the ferns. He had been 13, his leg torn open by a wild boar, too far from the castle to call for help. She should have run, should have known better than to approach the heir to the throne. But something about him had called to her, some instinct deeper than fear. "Please," he had gasped, his golden eyes meeting hers with desperate trust. "Please help me." So she had. Using everything her mother had taught her about healing plants, Sibylla had stopped the bleeding and treated the wound. When he was strong enough to sit up, he had smiled at her with such genuine warmth that her heart had stuttered. "You saved me," he had said simply. "What is your name?" "Sibylla." "I am Calder." He had not said Prince Calder, or mentioned his title at all. Just his name, as if they were equals. "Will you teach me about your herbs, Sibylla? They are more effective than anything our castle healers use." That should have been the end of it. But Calder had returned the next day, and the day after that. For 2 years they met in secret in their hidden corner of the forest. He taught her basic combat moves, showing her how to throw a punch without breaking her thumb, how to duck and roll away from danger. She taught him which plants could cure fever, which could numb pain, which could kill if used incorrectly. He called her my little healer, and she called him my wolf protector, because he always positioned himself between her and any sound that seemed threatening. Even then, even as children, she had felt something whenever he was near, a warmth that settled in her chest, an awareness of exactly where he stood, even when her back was turned, as if some invisible thread connected them. Then the guarda-real had found them. Sibylla still remembered the violence of that separation, how 3 grown guards had been required to drag Calder away while he fought and screamed her name. Consigliere Vex, a thin man with cold blue eyes, had stood over her and explained with clinical precision that she was never to approach the prince again. Her Omega blood was too weak, too contaminated. Association with her could corrupt the royal bloodline. They had left her sobbing in the dirt, while Calder's voice faded into the distance. In the days after, she had waited for the echo of his presence to disappear, that strange awareness that had always told her when he was nearby. It never did. Even now, 12 years later, she could still feel it, a faint pulse in the back of her mind, distant but persistent, like a heartbeat that was not her own. Sometimes it grew stronger, as if her heart beat in rhythm with someone else's, someone she had not seen in years. "Sibylla," Alara touched her shoulder gently. "Where did you go just now?" "Nowhere important," Sibylla lied, turning back to her herbs with hands that wanted to tremble. She had learned long ago not to speak of that echo. Her mother would only worry, and Torin was too young to understand. "The funeral is in 3 days," Alara said carefully. "We will be expected to attend. The entire pack must pay respects." Sibylla's stomach twisted. She had not laid eyes on Calder in 12 years. He would be 25 now, a grown man, a trained warrior, soon to be Alpha King. He would not remember the little Omega girl who once taught him which roots stopped infections. That echo in her mind pulsed, just once, as if disagreeing. Over the next 3 days, Sibylla threw herself into preparing mourning herbs as tradition demanded. Sprigs of rosemary for remembrance, white sage for purification, dried lavender to ease grief. Her hands stayed busy even as her mind refused to settle. The day before the funeral, she ventured into the forest to gather fresh materials. The trees felt different somehow, their ancient presence more watchful than usual. She had always been sensitive to the forest's moods. Another oddity that marked her as strange. Voices reached her ears before she saw them. Male voices, low and tense. Sibylla froze, recognizing the black and silver uniforms of the Guardia Real. But these were not the seasoned warriors she remembered from childhood. These men were young, their faces unfamiliar. "I am telling you, there was a mark on his neck," one guard insisted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Almost invisible, but I saw it. Captain Brant said we are not to speak of it." "What kind of mark?" his companion asked. "How should I know? I am no expert in curses or poisons. But the Alpha King did not die of natural causes. That much is certain. They are investigating quietly." Sibylla's breath caught. A mark on Godric's neck. Her mind immediately went to the darker legends her grandmother used to whisper. Stories of shadow magic and forbidden spells that could drain life force. The guards moved on, their conversation fading. Sibylla remained frozen, processing what she had heard. The council had hushed the whispers after Godric's death. No one dared question Vex's account, perhaps because they feared what they already suspected. If Godric had been murdered, that meant someone dangerous moved through their kingdom, someone powerful enough to kill an Alpha King. That night, she could not sleep. The echo in her mind that had been steady and distant for 12 years suddenly felt different, stronger, more insistent, as if whatever connected her to Calder was beginning to wake from a long slumber. When dawn finally came, Sibylla dressed in her simplest dark clothing and braided her long brown hair back from her face. Ilara and Torin were already waiting, both wearing expressions of resigned dread. Omegas were always required to attend pack functions, but they were relegated to the back, kept away from those who mattered. The walk to the castle took an hour. Sibylla watched storm clouds gather on the horizon, matching the heaviness in the air. That strange pressure she had felt 3 days ago had not lessened. If anything, it had grown worse, like the world itself was holding its breath. By the time they reached the castle grounds, hundreds of shifters had already gathered. Sibylla could smell the complex layering of scents, identifying alphas by their dominant musk, betas by their neutral tones, omegas by their softer signatures. The hierarchy was always clear in crowds like this. Her family was directed to the very back, as expected. From here, Sibylla could barely see the raised platform where the funeral ceremony would take place, but she could sense him. That echo in her mind suddenly blazed to life, stronger than it had been in 12 years, making her gasp. Calder was here, and for the first time since childhood, she was close enough to feel his presence like sunshine breaking through clouds. Chapter 2. The Alpha is dead. The funeral began under a sky that threatened rain, but did not deliver. Clouds rolled overhead in shades of ash and charcoal, blocking the sun so completely that torches had to be lit even though it was midday. Sibylla stood with her mother and brother at the very back of the crowd, surrounded by other low-ranking omegas, whose scents were muted with fear and uncertainty. She could not see the raised platform clearly from this distance, only glimpses between the shoulders of taller shifters. But she did not need to see Calder to feel him. That echo in her mind, dormant for 12 years, had roared to life the moment she stepped onto the castle grounds. It vibrated through her chest now, warm and insistent, as if her body remembered what her mind had tried to forget. "Do you see him?" Torin whispered, standing on his toes to peer over the crowd. Sibylla shook her head, not trusting her voice. Her hands were trembling, so she clasped them tightly together and focused on breathing. In and out. Steady. She was here to pay respects to a fallen Alpha King, not to relive childhood memories that no longer mattered. A hush fell over the assembly as the ceremony began. A deep, resonant horn sounded 3 times, its mournful notes carrying across the crowd. Then Calder stepped forward, and even from this distance, even with hundreds of bodies between them, Sibylla felt the air change. He wore black from head to toe, his dark hair pulled back from a face that had transformed from boyhood softness into sharp, masculine angles. Even in grief, his posture radiated authority. When he raised his arms to address the pack, every shifter present fell completely silent. "We gather to honor Alpha King Godric." Calder's voice carried across the plaza, with the natural command of someone born to rule. "A leader who brought prosperity to our kingdom. A father who taught me that true strength lies not in domination, but in protection of those who cannot protect themselves." Sibylla's breath hitched. She remembered him saying something similar when they were children, after he had scared away a wild dog that had been threatening her. Even then, he had understood leadership in ways that went beyond mere power. The ceremony continued with traditional prayers and offerings. Godric's body, dressed in ceremonial armor, lay upon a pyre of sacred wood. When the flames were finally lit, orange light danced across hundreds of upturned faces. Sibylla watched the smoke spiral upward, carrying the Alpha King's physical form to whatever lay beyond. Then the world tilted. It happened without warning. One moment Sibylla was watching the flames. The next, she felt a violent pull, as if hooks had embedded in her chest and yanked her sideways into another reality. The crowd around her faded, replaced by something impossible. She saw Godric. Not his burning body, but his spirit, translucent and writhing in agony. Chains of pure shadow wrapped around his limbs, his throat, his chest. His mouth was open in a silent scream that she felt rather than heard. The chains pulsed with dark energy, feeding on him, draining him like a leech drains blood. Trapped. He was trapped. His soul could not move on. "Sibylla!" Her mother's voice cut through the vision like a blade. "Sibylla, breathe!" The funeral snapped back into focus. Sibylla gasped, her knees buckling. Ilara caught her arm, steadying her with surprising strength for someone so small. Around them, other pack members glanced over with mild curiosity before returning their attention to the ceremony. "What did you see?" Ilara's whisper was urgent in her ear. "Him," Sibylla managed, her voice shaking. "Godric. He is not at peace, Mother. Something has him. Chains of shadow. He cannot leave." Alara's face went pale, her fingers tightening on Sibylla's arm. Your sight is awakening stronger than I thought possible. We will speak of this at home. Not here. But Sibylla could barely focus on her mother's words. That vision had felt more real than the ground beneath her feet. If Godric's soul was trapped, it meant dark magic was involved. The kind of magic that had been forbidden in Ravenspire for generations. The kind of magic that left marks on necks. The funeral concluded as twilight descended. The pack dispersed slowly. Voices hushed as they made their way back to homes and taverns. Sibylla walked in silence, her mind replaying that vision over and over. She wanted to tell someone, wanted to warn them that something evil walked among them. But who would believe an Omega so weak she barely deserved the title? 3 days passed in uneasy quiet. Sibylla threw herself into her work, grinding herbs and mixing tinctures with hands that needed to stay busy. But underneath the routine, anxiety coiled tighter with each passing hour. That pressure in the air had not lessened. If anything, it had grown worse, like a storm building just beyond the horizon. On the 3rd day, she was in the village market when the bells began to ring again. The sound stopped her heart, not the ceremonial tolling for a funeral, but the frantic, desperate clanging that meant crisis, emergency, disaster. Around her, villagers froze. Then someone screamed from the direction of the castle, and the word spread through the crowd faster than fire through dry grass. The Alpha is dead. Prince Calder is dead. No. The world seemed to tilt again, but this time there was no vision, only the absolute wrongness of those words. Sibylla dropped the basket she had been carrying, herbs scattering across the cobblestones. Her hand flew to her chest where that echo had lived for 12 years, expecting to find it gone, severed, emptied. Instead, it burned, pulsed, screamed at her with an intensity that stole her breath. He was not dead. He could not be dead. She would know. She would feel it. Sibylla! Torrin appeared out of the chaos, his young face streaked with tears. They are saying he collapsed during a council meeting. No warning. Just fell and stopped breathing. Mother is at the healer's hall trying to get information, but they will not let anyone in. What do we do? What do we do? Sibylla's mind raced. The echo in her chest pulsed again, weak but undeniably present. A heartbeat that was not hers. Distant, struggling, but alive. He is not dead, she heard herself say. The words came out with absolute certainty. What? Sibylla, 3 healers examined him. They declared him gone. There is no pulse, no breath, nothing. She didn't need proof. The heartbeat inside her soul screamed the truth louder than any words could. Her brother stared at her as if she had lost her mind. Perhaps she had. But that echo did not lie. It had never lied. By evening, the entire kingdom had gathered once more in the castle plaza. Rain fell in cold sheets now, soaking through Sibylla's cloak and chilling her to the bone, but she barely noticed. All her focus was on that heartbeat in her chest, that impossible rhythm that told her Calder lived even when everyone else believed him dead. Conselheiro Vex stood on the platform where Calder had led his father's funeral just 3 days ago. The thin man looked almost pleased despite his somber expression, his cold blue eyes scanning the crowd with calculation. People of Ravenspire, Vex's voice cut through the rain, it is with great sorrow that I confirm Prince Calder's passing. A mysterious illness has claimed our heir, just as it claimed his father. We must assume a curse has befallen the royal bloodline. Murmurs of fear rippled through the crowd. Sibylla felt her mother press closer to her side. The council has deliberated, Vex continued. We have decided that Prince Calder will be cremated at dawn tomorrow, exactly 24 hours from the moment of his death. Ancient ritual demands this timing to ensure proper purification of any curse or contamination. A new Alpha King will be chosen from eligible candidates within the week. No. They were going to burn him. They were going to burn him alive because whatever had him in its grip made him appear dead when he was not. Sibylla pushed forward through the crowd, her small frame easily slipping between larger bodies. She had to tell them, had to make them understand. Wait! Her voice came out thin, barely audible over the rain and murmuring pack. Please, he is not dead. He still lives. I can feel it. A few wolves near her turned to stare. One laughed outright. The Omega girl has lost her mind. I am telling the truth. There is something wrong, yes, but he breathes. His heart still beats. You cannot burn him. But her words were swallowed by the crowd, dismissed as the ravings of a low-ranking female too weak to know better. Guardsmen in black and silver stepped between her and the platform, their faces impassive. Return to your place, Omega, one commanded. This is not your concern. Sibylla tried to push past them, desperation making her reckless. A hand closed on her arm, yanking her back. She looked up to find her mother's face, rain-streaked and terrified. Stop, Ilara hissed. You will only make it worse for our family. They will not listen to you. But mother, he is alive. I swear it. I can feel his heartbeat in my soul. Ilara's eyes widened, recognition flashing across her features. The bond, she breathed. It is stronger than I realized. Oh, my daughter, what has the goddess done? What are you talking about? Not here. Ilara pulled her through the crowd, Torin trailing behind them. They did not stop until they reached the edge of the plaza, where fewer bodies pressed together. Listen to me carefully. What you feel, that heartbeat that is not yours, it means you are connected to him. Fated mates, perhaps, though that should not be possible across such a distance without mutual recognition. Fated mates. The words landed in Sibylla's chest like a stone dropping into still water, sending ripples through everything she thought she knew. That cannot be, she whispered. He is the future Alpha King. I am nobody. The goddess does not care about rank, Ilara said fiercely. If you feel him, truly feel him, then that connection is real. But Sibylla, if you are right and he lives, dawn will come in less than 12 hours. After that, Calder would burn. And something told Sibylla that if he died, that echo in her chest would die with him. The thought was unbearable. I have to save him, she said. It was not a question. How? You cannot even get close to the castle. The guard has been doubled. Sibylla's mind raced, 12 years of memories flooding back. Secret passages, hidden doors. Calder had shown her ways into the castle that even the guards did not know about. Paths they had used for their childhood games. I know a way in, she said quietly. He showed me once. Ilara's expression shifted from fear to resignation, to something that might have been pride. Then go. But be careful, my clever daughter. If you are caught, they will not be kind. Sibylla met her mother's gaze and saw understanding there. Understanding. And something else. Knowledge that had been kept hidden for too long. The rain continued to fall as the crowd dispersed. Sibylla remained where she was, pressed against the stone wall of a merchant's shop, watching the castle guards patrol their routes. In her chest, that heartbeat pulsed. Weak. Struggling. But alive. She had 12 hours to prove everyone wrong. 12 hours to save the boy who had once called her his little healer. 12 hours to save her fated mate, even if he did not yet know that was what she was. Chapter 3. Shadows and Stone. Midnight found Sibylla pressed against the outer wall of the castle. Her dark cloak soaked through with rain that had finally begun to fall in earnest. She had waited hours for the guard rotation to shift, watching patterns, counting steps, memorizing the brief gaps in their patrol routes. The passage Calder had shown her 12 years ago was hidden behind a false section of wall near the old stables. She prayed it had not been discovered, that it remained their secret alone. Her fingers found the carved wolf's head that served as the trigger, pressing exactly where he had taught her. Stone ground against stone, and a narrow opening appeared. Sibylla slipped inside before she could lose her nerve. The passage was tight, forcing her to turn sideways in places, her shoulders scraping rough rock. Darkness pressed close, absolute and suffocating. She moved by memory and touch, one hand trailing along the wall while the other held a small oil lamp that provided barely enough light to see her own feet. The echo in her chest pulsed weakly, pulling her forward. This way. Keep going. He is close. After what felt like hours but could only have been minutes, the passage opened into a wider corridor. Sibylla recognized it from childhood explorations. The mortuary chambers lay 3 floors below the main castle, carved into bedrock where temperature stayed cold year-round. She encountered no guards in these lower levels. Why would they post sentries at a dead man's door? The thought made her stomach twist. The mortuary chamber was marked by heavy wooden doors bound in iron. Sibylla approached slowly, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. The doors were locked, but the mechanism was old. She pulled a bent hairpin from her pocket, another skill Calder had taught her during their games of secret missions. Her hands shook as she worked the lock. Once, twice. On the third attempt, something clicked. The door swung inward with a groan that sounded deafening in the silence. Calder lay on a stone slab in the center of the room, dressed in ceremonial black clothing with his hands folded across his chest. Candles burned at the four corners, their flames casting dancing shadows across his still face. Sibylla's breath caught. 12 years had transformed the boy she remembered into someone almost unrecognizable. His features had sharpened, his jaw now covered with a neatly trimmed dark beard. Muscle filled out a frame that had been lanky in youth. He looked every inch the warrior prince he had become. She approached on trembling legs. Up close, his skin held the pallor of death, lips tinged with blue. No breath stirred his chest. When she pressed shaking fingers to his throat, she felt no pulse. But in her soul, that heartbeat continued. Faint, struggling, desperate. "I know you are in there," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I can feel you, Calder. I have always felt you." She forced herself to focus, to examine him as a healer, rather than someone whose heart was breaking. Her hands moved over his body, checking for injuries, for any sign of what had been done to him. Then she found it. The mark on his neck, just below his ear, so faint she almost missed it in the candlelight. A symbol that seemed to shift when she looked at it directly. Lines that formed patterns her eyes could not quite follow. Recognition slammed into her. The same mark. She breathed. The guards mentioned Godric had a mark. This is identical. Her grandmother's stories flooded back. Tales of shadow magic, of spells that could suspend life, trapping the victim between death and living while their essence slowly drained away. Forbidden magic that required a practitioner of considerable power and absolutely no conscience. She tried pressing herbs against the mark, combinations that could counteract most poisons. Nothing happened. This was not poison. This was pure magic, and breaking it required more than plants and prayers. Sibylla made a decision born of desperation. She could not break the spell, but perhaps she could move him. Get him away from whatever dark ritual was feeding on him. She was small, and Calder was solid muscle. Every attempt to shift his weight made her arms tremble. She managed to slide him a few inches toward the edge of the slab, before exhaustion forced her to stop. "Please," she whispered against his chest, her cheek pressed where his heart should be beating. "Please fight. I know you are strong enough." Footsteps echoed in the corridor outside. Sibylla spun, pulse spiking with terror. She had been so focused on Calder that she had not heard the approaching patrol. 4 guards filled the doorway, their faces registering shock that quickly shifted to anger. "What in the goddess's name is this?" The largest guard, a man with a commander's insignia, stepped forward. His hand went to his sword. "You dare defile the prince's body? He is not dead." The words burst from Sibylla before she could stop them. "Please, you must listen. There is a mark on his neck. Shadow magic. The same mark that was on Alpha King Godric. Someone is killing the royal line with forbidden spells." The guards exchanged glances. One laughed, the sound harsh in the stone chamber. "The Omega girl has lost her mind. I am telling you the truth. Examine his neck. You will see the mark. This is not natural death. It is murder." The commander, whose badge identified him as Captain Brandt, approached slowly. His eyes were hard, but something in his expression suggested he was at least considering her words. He leaned over Calder's body, tilting the prince's head to expose his neck. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his jaw tightened. "There is something here. A marking of some kind." Hope flared in Sibylla's chest. "You see it? You see I am telling the truth?" "What I see," Brandt said slowly, "is that you have been caught alone with the prince's body, making wild accusations about magic and marks that could easily have been drawn by you to support your story. No, I would never. Restrain her. Brant's command cut through her protest. 2 guards moved forward. Then Calder inhaled. It was not a large breath, barely perceptible. But his chest rose, just once, before falling still again. Every person in the room froze, staring at the body that was supposed to be lifeless. Did you see that? Sibylla's voice shook with desperate relief. He breathed. He is alive, just as I said. Brant's face had gone pale. He pressed his fingers to Calder's throat, searching for a pulse. After a long moment, he shook his head. Fear of breaking royal protocol outweighed belief. If the prince truly lived, touching his body unbidden was still treason. I feel nothing, because the spell is suppressing his vital signs. But he is fighting it. That breath proves it. Sibylla tried to pull free from the guards holding her arms. Please, you cannot let them burn him at dawn. Give him more time. Let your healers examine him properly. The captain stood frozen in indecision. Sibylla could see the conflict warring across his features. Finally, he spoke. Take her to the cells, and bring the prince's body back to this chamber under heavy guard. If he shows any other signs of life, I am to be informed immediately. But you have said enough, girl. You will wait in the dungeons while we sort this out, Brant said, his voice rough with uncertainty. This time, Sibylla did not fight back. She held her silence, a quiet storm brewing beneath her fear. As the guards dragged her from the room, Sibylla's eyes remained locked on Calder's still form. That single breath had to be enough, had to convince them to delay the cremation. In her chest, his heartbeat pulsed again, weaker now. The dungeon cells carved into the castle's lowest level were damp and cold, water seeping through cracks in ancient stone. They threw Sibylla into one and slammed the iron door with a clang that echoed through her bones. She had perhaps an hour alone with her fear before footsteps approached again. These were measured, deliberate. The footsteps of someone who had all the time in the world. Conselheiro Vex appeared outside her cell, carrying a lantern that cast his thin face in sharp relief. His cold blue eyes studied her through the bars. Sibylla, daughter of Samuel, how unfortunate that you have found yourself in such dire circumstances. Where is Calder? She demanded. Did you see him breathe? Did you see proof that I speak the truth? I saw a girl desperate to avoid consequences for her own actions. Vex moved closer to the bars. You claim there is a mark on the prince's neck, a mark of shadow magic. There is. The same mark that was on Alpha King Godric. I heard your guards discussing it. Something flickered behind Vex's eyes. Fear, unmistakable and quickly hidden. You make serious accusations, child. Shadow magic has been forbidden in this kingdom for 3 generations. No one possesses such knowledge anymore. Someone does, Sibylla pressed. Someone killed the Alpha King and now seeks to kill his heir. Someone who wants the royal bloodline eliminated. Vex smiled, but it did not reach his eyes. You spin elaborate tales. Perhaps the stress of being a weak Omega in a world that has no place for you has finally broken your mind. He turned to leave, then paused. The prince will be cremated at dawn as planned. Your delusions will not prevent proper ritual. He will die. Sibylla grabbed the bars. If you burn him tomorrow, you will murder him yourself. Then I suppose we will discover whether your claims hold any truth. Vex's footsteps faded into darkness. Alone again, Sibylla sank onto the rough wooden bench that served as her cell's only furniture. Through the tiny window high in the wall, she could see the sky beginning to lighten. Dawn approached. In her chest, Calder's heartbeat grew fainter. The spell was draining him. And she was trapped here, helpless to stop it, unless her mother and brother could find a way to reach her first. Chapter 4. Moonlight and Shadow. The sound of footsteps woke Sibylla from exhausted half-sleep. She scrambled to her feet as 2 familiar figures appeared outside her cell, their faces illuminated by the flickering torch Torin carried. Mother? Torin? How did you get past the guards? Alara pressed close to the bars, her dark eyes urgent. We do not have much time. Listen carefully, my daughter. What you feel for Calder, that connection that lets you sense his heartbeat, it is not madness. It is real. I know it is real, Sibylla whispered. I can feel him dying, Mother. Every moment that passes, he grows weaker. Then I must tell you the truth I have hidden for 22 years. Alara's hands gripped the iron bars. The sensitivity you have always felt, the way you perceive things other Omegas cannot. It is not simply Omega instinct. You inherited something far older. We are moon singers, blessed by the goddess herself, with healing magic tied to lunar power. The word settled over Sibylla like a weight, and a revelation at once. Moon singers? But those are only legends. We were real once, before we were hunted nearly to extinction. I survived by masking my scent and suppressing my power with rare herbs, living quietly among Omegas where no one looked closely. Our bloodline carries magic that can heal wounds, sense soul bonds, manipulate life energy itself. I suppressed your power with herbs from the time you were a baby, trying to protect you. But now your fated mate is dying, and the bond between you is screaming for you to save him. Your magic is awakening whether I wish it or not. Fated mate. There was that phrase again, confirming what Sibylla had barely dared to believe. If I have this power, why can I not break his cell door? Why can I not save him from here? Because you have never been taught to use it consciously. Breaking shadow magic requires moonlight and focused intent. The spell on Calder can only be broken with direct exposure to Luna's full light and a moonsinger's song. Alara glanced toward the small window. The moon is full tonight. This is your only chance. Then help me escape this cell so I can reach him. Torin stepped forward, his young face set with determination. I am going to create a distraction. The old stables near the south wall. They are full of dry hay. A fire there will draw every guard. Torin, no. It is too dangerous. You saved me from fever when I was 6, her brother said firmly. You have protected me my whole life. Let me help you now. Before Sibylla could protest further, Torin disappeared into the darkness. Alara closed her eyes, pressing her palms against the cell's lock. Sibylla felt, rather than saw, the magic her mother channeled. A whisper of silver light that made the metal grow warm. I have little power left. Alara murmured. Years of suppression cost me dearly, but I can weaken this enough for you to break free. Minutes stretched like hours. Then shouts erupted from somewhere above, followed by the acrid smell of smoke. The guards stationed near the dungeons abandoned their posts, running toward the crisis. Now! Alara hissed. Sibylla threw her weight against the cell door. The weakened lock gave way with a shriek of protesting metal. She stumbled free, her mother catching her arm. The mortuary chamber is on the 3rd level down. Follow the western corridor. Go quickly, before they realize the fire is just a distraction. Sibylla ran. Her bare feet slapped against cold stone as she navigated corridors she had memorized during her earlier infiltration. The castle above her was chaos. Guards shouting orders, the smell of smoke growing stronger. She prayed Torin would escape safely. The mortuary chamber doors stood closed but unguarded. She burst through them and froze. Calder still lay on the stone slab. But he was no longer alone. Conselheiro Vex stood at his head, flanked by 2 hooded figures in black robes. Between them, a series of items had been arranged in a ritual circle. Candles burned with unnatural blue flames. An ornate urn sat at the center, and Sibylla recognized it as the vessel that held Godric's ashes. Dark energy pulsed through the room, making her skin crawl. You! Vex snarled, spinning to face her. How did you escape? Understanding crashed over Sibylla with crystal clarity. The vision at the funeral. Godric's soul trapped in shadow chains. That was real. She pointed at the urn. You did not just kill him. You are using his trapped spirit to fuel this ritual. Vex's thin lips curved into a cold smile. Clever girl. Yes, I killed the old king months ago, draining his power slowly through shadow magic. When the sun ascended, I simply repeated the process. The combined strength of an Alpha King and his heir, all flowing into me. In shifter lore, the Alpha King's essence carried the primal right of command. Consuming it meant seizing every pack's instinctive obedience. Once I absorb it fully, I will command authority over every shifter in this kingdom. The council will have no choice but to accept me as the new Alpha King. You are insane, Sibylla breathed. The goddess will never bless such corruption. The goddess abandoned this world long ago. There is only power, girl, and those strong enough to seize it. Sibylla did not think. She simply moved, throwing herself toward Calder to break whatever connection the ritual had established. Vex's hand shot out, and shadow materialized into solid form, a blade of pure darkness that sliced through the air toward her. Instinct took over. Light exploded from Sibylla's palms, a shield of pure silver that intercepted the shadow blade. The impact sent her stumbling back, but the darkness dissipated against her light. Both she and Vex stared at her glowing hands in shock. "Moonsinger," Vex hissed. "I should have known. Samuel's daughter carries the bloodline." His eyes narrowed. "No matter. You are untrained, weak. 2 more will die tonight instead of 1. He attacked again, this time with both hands, sending waves of shadow that writhed and coiled. The 2 hooded Akalitos joined in, their own dark magic adding to the assault. Sibylla had no training, no technique. She only had desperation, and the need to protect the man whose heartbeat echoed in her soul. Light poured from her in response to each attack, pure and instinctive. When shadow came at her, moonlight rose to meet it. The Akalitos fell back as one of Sibylla's wild bursts of power struck them both. They fled through the door, their robes smoking, terror overriding their loyalty to Vex. Now it was just the 2 of them. Vex and Sibylla, shadow and light, battling over Calder's still form. Then the moon rose high enough to shine through the stained glass window above. A beam of pure silver light fell across Calder's body, illuminating him in ethereal radiance. Sibylla felt the pull, felt the rightness of this moment. Without conscious thought, ancient words flowed from her lips in a language she had never learned but somehow knew. The moonsinger's song, passed down through blood and bone. The mark on Calder's neck began to glow, black lines burning bright before starting to fade. The spell was breaking. "No!" Vex screamed. He abandoned attacking Sibylla and turned his full power on Calder instead, attempting to drain the last of the prince's life force before losing him entirely. Sibylla did not hesitate. She threw herself between them. Pain exploded through her shoulder as shadow magic tore into flesh. She felt blood, hot and wet, spilling from the wound. But she had accomplished what she needed. She had broken Vex's line of sight to Calder. Her blood dripped down, falling onto Calder's lips. Her power surged through the wound, holding his soul tethered to his body long enough for the transformation to complete. The world seemed to hold its breath, then power detonated outward from their connection. Sibylla's moonsinger blood, blessed by the goddess and tied to lunar magic, met Calder's alpha essence in the presence of the full moon. The combination shattered what remained of Vex's spell, like glass meeting a hammer. The mark on Calder's neck burned completely away, leaving unblemished skin. Calder gasped, a deep, shuddering breath that filled his chest fully for the first time in days. His eyes snapped open, golden and fierce and alive, but Sibylla's vision was already dimming, blood loss and magical exhaustion pulling her toward darkness. The last thing she saw before unconsciousness claimed her was Calder's face, his eyes widening in recognition as he looked at her properly for the first time in 12 years. "Sibylla?" Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "My little healer?" Then everything went black. Chapter 5. Recognition. The first thing Calder registered was pain. Not the distant, muffled sensation that had plagued his suspended state, but sharp, immediate agony that meant his body was truly alive again. His lungs burned as they pulled in air. His heart hammered against his ribs, making up for days of barely beating. The second thing he registered was the small, bleeding woman collapsed across his chest. Dark hair spilled over his ceremonial clothes, matted with blood from a shoulder wound that looked vicious. Her face was pale, lips tinged with blue from blood loss. But even unconscious, even dying, something about her called to him with an intensity that stole what little breath he had managed to recover. He knew her. Goddess help him. He knew her. Sibylla? Her name emerged as a croak from his damaged throat. My little healer? Memories crashed through him in waves. A forest clearing. Herbs that smelled of earth and safety. A girl with solemn eyes who had saved his life when he was 13. 2 years of stolen afternoons learning about plants and combat, and what it meant to have someone see you as more than a title. Then guards dragging him away while she screamed his name. Vex's cold voice explaining she was contaminated, forbidden, dangerous to his future. 12 years of searching, of asking servants and guards if they knew of a girl named Sibylla who lived in the forest. 12 years of being told she had left the kingdom entirely. They had lied. She had been here all along. Movement in his peripheral vision snapped Calder's attention to the present threat. Vex stood near the doorway, gathering dark energy for another attack. The Consigliero's face was twisted with rage and desperation. Calder's wolf roared to life inside him. Not gradually, not with the control he had spent years perfecting. Pure alpha fury exploded through every nerve, demanding he protect what was his. The woman bleeding on his chest was his, had always been his. He surged upright, cradling Sibylla against him with one arm, while his other hand transformed partially, claws emerging as he snarled at Vex. The sound that ripped from his throat was barely human, all predator and promise of violence. "You hurt her," Calder growled, his voice layered with the command of his wolf. "You die for that." He lunged, moving with alpha speed even though his body protested every motion. Vex threw shadow blades, but Calder's rage made him reckless. One caught his side, tearing through cloth and skin. He did not slow. Vex's eyes widened with genuine fear for the first time. He abandoned offense, using his remaining power to create an explosion of darkness that shattered half the room's stone wall. When the smoke cleared, Vex was gone, fled through the gap like the coward he was. Calder wanted to pursue, wanted to hunt the traitor down and tear out his throat with his teeth. But Sibylla made a small sound of pain, and his priorities realigned instantly. He turned back to her, laying her gently on the stone slab he had so recently occupied. Her wound was deep, the flesh torn and corrupted with shadow magic. He could smell the darkness in it, poison that would kill her if not treated. Guards poured into the room, led by Captain Brandt. They stopped short at the scene before them, their prince alive and wounded, holding an Omega girl who was dying, the room destroyed, and no sign of Consigliero Vex. "Get the healers," Calder commanded, his voice brooking no argument. "Now, and someone find her family. Her mother's name is Alara." "My lord, you are alive," Brandt stammered. "We thought... the spell... How did you..." "She saved me." Calder looked down at Sibylla's too pale face. "She broke the spell that should have killed me. She is wounded because she stood between me and Vex's final attack. Get the healers." The command in his voice, pure alpha authority, sent guards scattering to obey. Calder tried to staunch Sibylla's bleeding with strips torn from his own clothing. But his hands were shaking. The shadow corruption was spreading. He could see it. Dark veins creeping from the wound across her shoulder. "Don't you dare die," he whispered against her hair. "Not after finding you again. Not after 12 years. Stay with me, little healer. Fight." The healers arrived, 3 elderly women who took one look at the shadow corruption and exchanged grim glances. They worked with efficient speed, applying poultices and chanting prayers to the goddess. But Calder could see the doubt in their faces. "She is Moonsinger," he told them, not knowing where the certainty came from. "Her magic is tied to the moon. Perhaps that will help her fight the darkness." The healer's eyes widened. One nodded slowly. "That may save her yet. Moonsinger blood is resistant to shadow magic, though the battle will not be easy." They took Sibylla to the healing ward. Calder followed despite his own injuries, despite the healers insisting he needed treatment. He would not leave her. Could not. His own wounds were treated while he sat beside her bed. The shadow blade had left a gash across his ribs, but it was superficial compared to what Sibylla had taken for him. The healers also noted with concern that his strength kept fluctuating, surging strong one moment and weak the next. "The spell did lasting damage to your essence," the head healer explained. "Even though it was broken, your body must recover from the drain. It may take time before your power stabilizes completely." Calder barely heard her. His entire focus was on Sibylla's face, watching for any sign of worsening or improvement. Alara and Torin arrived within the hour, both of them looking terrified. When they saw Sibylla unconscious and pale, Alara made a sound like a wounded animal. "What happened?" she demanded, moving to her daughter's other side. "She saved my life," Calder said simply. "Broke the shadow spell that had me trapped between life and death. Then she took an attack meant for me." Alara's eyes met his, and something passed between them. Understanding. This small Omega woman saw past his title to the truth beneath. She saw that he recognized what Sibylla was to him. "You remember her?" Alara said. "Not a question. Every moment we spent together. The guards told me your family left the kingdom. I searched for her for years. We were forbidden from contacting you. Vex threatened exile if we tried." Alara smoothed Sibylla's hair back from her fevered forehead. "She never forgot you either. That echo she always felt. That was your soul calling to hers." Over the next 3 days, Sibylla fought the shadow corruption in her blood. Fever racked her body. She cried out in her sleep, speaking of darkness and chains. Calder stayed by her side through all of it, leaving only when absolutely necessary for council meetings that could not be postponed. The kingdom was in chaos. News had spread that their prince lived, that Conselheiro Vex was revealed as a traitor who had murdered the Alpha King and attempted to murder the heir. Search parties scoured the countryside for the Conselheiro, but Vex had vanished completely. The council demanded Calder take the throne immediately to restore stability. He refused until Sibylla woke. When they protested, he silenced them with a growl that rattled the windows. "The woman who saved your prince lies dying. I will not abandon her for politics." On the 4th day, as dawn light filtered through the window, Sibylla's eyes finally opened. Calder was there instantly, leaning over her. "Sibylla? Can you hear me?" She blinked slowly, focusing on his face. Recognition dawned, followed by confusion. "Calder, you are alive. The spell. Did I break it?" "You broke it," he confirmed, relief making his voice rough. "You saved me. Good." A small smile touched her lips. "I could not let them burn you. That would have been terrible." He laughed, the sound surprising him. Terrible indeed. Her smile faded as more awareness returned. "Vex escaped. He is still out there. We will find him. But first you need to heal." "I am healing." She tried to sit up and immediately gasped in pain, her hand going to her bandaged shoulder. Calder gently pressed her back down. "Not yet. The corruption fought hard, but your Moonsinger blood won. The healers say you will recover fully with rest." Moonsinger," she repeated softly. "My mother told me the truth. Everything I felt, everything I thought was just sensitivity. It was magic all along. Magic that saved my life." He took her hand carefully, mindful of his strength. "Sibylla, I need you to know something. When I woke and saw you there, I remembered everything. Our afternoons in the forest, the way you would bite your lip when concentrating on an herb mixture, how you called me your wolf protector." Tears gathered in her eyes. "You remember?" "Truly. Every detail. The spell had suppressed those memories, I think. Vex did not want me attached to you, but they came flooding back the moment I woke." He pressed her hand to his chest, where his heart beat strong and steady. "That echo you felt. I felt it too. Always. I just did not understand what it meant until now." "What does it mean?" she whispered. "It means you are mine, Sibylla. My fated mate. The other half of my soul." He met her gaze steadily. "I know you are Omega and I am Alpha. I know tradition says this is impossible. I do not care. You are mine, and I am yours, and nothing will change that." Sibylla stared at him, wonder and fear warring in her expression. "I am nobody. The pack despises me. The council will never accept. The council will accept what I tell them to accept," Calder said firmly. "You saved their prince with magic they thought lost. You are Moonsinger, blessed by the goddess herself. Anyone who questions your worth answers to me, Calder." "Sibylla." He leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. "I will not force this bond on you. If you do not want me, I will accept that. But know this. I have spent 12 years with part of me missing. Now I have found you again, and I am not letting go without a fight." Before she could respond, a commotion outside the door announced new arrivals. The council had apparently decided they could wait no longer. When they entered and saw Calder holding Sibylla's hand, Several faces showed clear disapproval, but Calder stood, positioning himself between them and her bed with deliberate protectiveness. "Prince Calder," one elder began, "we are grateful beyond measure that you live, but the kingdom needs leadership. The coronation must proceed." "It will," Calder agreed. "But first, you will all understand something very clearly." His voice carried alpha command that made even the elders straighten instinctively. "This woman saved my life when all of you had declared me dead. She carries moonsinger magic and broke shadow spells none of you could even detect. She is under my personal protection. Anyone who speaks against her speaks against me." The room fell silent. Finally, one of the more progressive council members cleared his throat. "No one questions her bravery, my lord. But Vex remains at large. We must be prepared for his return." "We will be," Calder said. "But I cannot take the throne, cannot lead this kingdom, while the damage from the spell is still healing. My strength is unstable. Until I am fully recovered, I need someone I trust at my side." He looked back at Sibylla, and what she saw in his eyes made her breath catch. Trust. Need. Something deeper than words could express. "I need you," he said simply. "Will you help me?" And despite everything, despite the impossibility of their situation and the dangers that surely waited ahead, Sibylla found herself nodding. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, my wolf protector. I will help you." Chapter 6. Hunt and Heart. A week passed before Sibylla was strong enough to leave the healing ward. The shadow corruption had fought viciously, but her moonsinger blood proved stronger. Still, the wound left her weaker than before, her movements careful and measured. Calder had spent nearly every waking hour at her bedside during her recovery. When the council demanded his presence, he went reluctantly and returned as quickly as possible. Sibylla found his constant presence both comforting and overwhelming. This man was nothing like the boy she had known, yet somehow exactly the same. On the 8th day, he arrived carrying a bundle of clothing. "The healers say you are well enough to walk. Will you come with me?" She followed him through corridors she had never seen before, to a private chamber overlooking the forest where they had once played. The view stole her breath. "Do you remember this place?" Calder asked, standing beside her at the window. "The clearing where you taught me to throw a proper punch without breaking my thumb." Sibylla smiled at the memory. "You were so patient. Even when I kept getting the stance wrong. You were 10. Most 10-year-olds cannot throw punches at all." He turned to face her fully. "Sibylla, we need to talk about what comes next. Vex is still out there. The Akalitos we captured revealed under interrogation that there are other conspirators, wolves loyal to him scattered throughout the territory. Some may even be on the council." A chill ran down her spine. "So the threat has not ended?" "No. The council is demanding I prove I am fit to rule. The shadow spell did lasting damage. My strength comes and goes unpredictably." He held out his hand, and she watched his fingers tremble slightly. "Sometimes I have full alpha power. Other times I am barely stronger than a human. Until this stabilizes, they question my ability to lead. What will you do?" "There is an old tradition called the ritual of reivindication. The alpha candidate must hunt and eliminate a major threat to the pack without assistance. The council has designated Vex and his remaining conspirators as that threat. They are hiding in the Black Mountains, using the caves there as a base." Sibylla understood immediately. "They want you to go after him alone while you are still weakened. Some on the council hope I will fail. They see opportunity in chaos." His jaw tightened. "But I have an advantage they do not know about. When you are near me, my power stabilizes. Your moonsinger magic somehow balances the damage the spell left behind. Then I will come with you." "Sibylla, it will be dangerous. We are talking about tracking a murderer through hostile terrain while fighting his corrupted followers." "I know." She met his gaze steadily. "But you need me. And I will not let you face this alone. Not after everything." Something shifted in his expression. Gratitude and something deeper warming his golden eyes. "The council will protest. Let them." The council meeting the next morning was exactly as contentious as Calder had predicted. When he announced Sibylla would accompany him on the hunt, 3 elders immediately objected. "An Omega on a battle mission is unprecedented," one blustered. It is beneath the dignity of— She goes. Calder's voice carried alpha command that made even the boldest council member flinch. She saved my life when all of you declared me dead. She carries moonsinger magic that broke shadow spells your healers could not even detect. She is essential to my stability and therefore essential to this mission. This is not a debate. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Finally, Captain Brant spoke. If the prince believes she is necessary, then she goes. We have no authority to countermand him on matters of his own survival. They departed 2 days later with minimal supplies. The journey to the Black Mountains would take 3 days on foot, possibly 4 given the difficult terrain. Calder had insisted on traveling light and fast, just the 2 of them. Any larger party would alert Vex to their approach. The first day passed in careful navigation through dense forest. Sibylla found herself watching Calder move through the wilderness, noting how completely at ease he seemed away from the castle's politics. This was the boy she remembered, the one who had shown her secret paths and taught her to read animal tracks. They made camp that first night in a sheltered hollow. After a simple meal of dried meat and bread, Calder stood and extended his hand to her. Come, I want to teach you something. He led her to a flat area near their fire and demonstrated a defensive stance. You saved my life with magic, but magic can be exhausted or blocked. You need to know how to protect yourself physically, too. For the next hour, he taught her basic combat moves, how to break a hold, where to strike to disable an attacker. His hands on her hips, correcting her stance, sent heat through her that had nothing to do with exertion. When he moved behind her to adjust her arm position, his chest pressed against her back and she forgot how to breathe. If someone grabs you from behind like this— His arms encircled her carefully, demonstrating— You drop your weight, elbow back hard into their ribs, then— Sibylla turned in his arms, her face suddenly very close to his. They both froze. The firelight caught in his golden eyes, and she saw her own desire reflected there. Sibylla, he breathed, her name a warning and a question. She did not move away. The second night found them higher in the mountains, where the air grew thin and cold. They had encountered a group of wolves from a neighboring pack that afternoon, traders passing through. One of the males had looked at Sibylla with clear interest, his eyes lingering on her face as he asked her name. Calder's reaction had been immediate and unmistakable. A growl rumbled from his chest, low and possessive. He stepped between Sibylla and the other male, his body language screaming threat. She is mine, he said, the words edged with alpha dominance. Any wolf who looks at her that way again will answer to me. Understood? The trader had backed away quickly, hands raised in submission. Later, as they made camp, Sibylla confronted him. That was excessive. He only asked my name. He was thinking about more than your name. Calder's eyes blazed. I could smell his interest, his intent. And what if I wanted his interest? The look Calder gave her was pure predator. He crossed the distance between them in 2 strides, backing her against a tree. His hands came up to frame her face, careful, despite the intensity in his touch. Do you? He demanded. Want his interest? Want any male's interest but mine? Her heart pounded. No. Good, because I am trying very hard to court you properly, to give you time and choice, but my wolf has limits. Seeing another male look at you like that. He closed his eyes briefly, struggling for control. You are mine, Sibylla. I know I have no right to claim you yet, but everything in me knows you belong to me. Then stop trying so hard to be proper, she whispered. I am not fragile. I am not a child anymore. His eyes snapped open. No, you are not. You are strong and brave and beautiful, and I want you so badly I can barely think straight. On the 3rd night, they camped within sight of the Black Mountains. Tomorrow they would find Vex. Tomorrow everything would become dangerous. But tonight, under a canopy of stars, Calder took her hand and led her away from the fire. I need to tell you something before we face what comes next, he began. For 12 years, I felt empty, incomplete. I went through the motions of becoming the prince I was supposed to be, but nothing felt right. No other female ever. No one was you. Calder, let me finish. Please." He cupped her face with both hands. "I am not choosing you because of fate or destiny or some mystical bond, though those exist. I am choosing you because you are the only person who has ever made me feel whole. You are smart and compassionate and far braver than you believe. You see me, not my title. You are my friend, my healer, my equal, and I love you. I have loved you since I was 13 years old, and you saved my life with herbs and stubbornness." Tears spilled down Sibylla's cheeks. "I have loved you just as long. Even when I thought I would never see you again, even when everyone said you were lost to me, I loved you." He leaned down slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When their lips finally met, it was not tentative or questioning. It was claiming, possession, promise. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her flush against him as the kiss deepened. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "When this is over, when Vex is dealt with and the kingdom is stable, I am going to court you properly. Gifts and poetry and everything you deserve." She laughed breathlessly. "I just want you. The rest does not matter." Their moment was shattered by movement in the trees. Calder spun, pushing Sibylla behind him as 10 wolves emerged from the shadows. Their eyes glowed with an unnatural red light, and the scent rolling off them was corrupt. Vex's followers, twisted by shadow magic. The fight was brutal and coordinated. Calder's strength surged and faltered unpredictably. But every time it wavered, Sibylla was there. Her moonsinger magic created shields of light, repelled attackers, kept him stable. They moved together as if they had been fighting side by side for years rather than days. When the last attacker fell, Calder caught one who still breathed. His hand closed around the male's throat. "Where is Vex hiding?" The corrupted wolf laughed. The sound wrong. "In the caves. He is completing the ritual, using the stolen souls. You are too late." "What ritual?" Sibylla demanded, kneeling beside them. "What is he doing?" "The ritual of ultimate power. He will become Alpha King of all shifters, or he will die trying." They extracted the exact location before the corruption consumed the wolf entirely. Calder stood, his expression grim. "We go at dawn," he said. "This ends tomorrow." Sibylla looked toward the dark mountains and felt dread settle in her stomach. Tomorrow they would face Vex again. Tomorrow one of them might die, but tonight she had Calder's arms around her. And for now, that was enough. Chapter 7. Blood and Moonlight. Dawn broke cold and gray over the Black Mountains. Sibylla and Calder stood at the entrance to the cave system, where Vex had made his final refuge. The opening yawned before them, darkness so absolute it seemed to swallow light itself. "Stay close to me," Calder said, his hand finding hers. "These caves are a maze. We cannot afford to be separated." They descended into shadow. Sibylla conjured small orbs of moonlight to guide their path, the silver glow revealing ancient rock formations and narrow passages that twisted deeper into the mountain's heart. Her moonsinger senses tingled with awareness of dark magic ahead, growing stronger with each step. The passage opened suddenly into a massive chamber. Ritual circles covered the floor in complex patterns drawn with what looked sickeningly like blood. Candles burned with that same unnatural blue flame Sibylla remembered from the mortuary, and at the center of it all stood Vex, except he was no longer simply Vex. The shadow magic had transformed him into something monstrous. His body had grown massive, muscles rippling beneath skin that looked more like shadow than flesh. His eyes burned completely black, no white remaining. When he smiled, his teeth were pointed obsidian shards. "You came," Vex's voice echoed with unnatural resonance. "Good. I was hoping to add your power to my collection before claiming the throne." Calder moved to place himself between Sibylla and the corrupted Consolero. "Your claim ends here. Surrender and face the council's justice, or die." Vex laughed, the sound wrong in ways that made Sibylla's skin crawl. "Justice? I am beyond your petty mortal justice. I have consumed the power of an Alpha King. Soon I will consume yours as well, and that little moonsinger's magic will make a fine dessert." He attacked without further warning, Shadow blades materialized and flew through the air with deadly speed. Calder dodged, his alpha reflexes allowing him to move faster than the eye could follow. But Sibylla saw what Vex was doing. Each attack forced Calder to expend energy, to use his still unstable power in bursts that would leave him vulnerable. She created shields of moonlight, intercepting attacks before they could reach Calder. Her magic and his strength worked in tandem, a dance they had perfected over their journey. But Vex was stronger than before, fed by stolen souls and forbidden magic. He split his attention, sending waves of shadow at both of them simultaneously. Calder deflected with claws that had emerged partially, tearing through darkness. Sibylla's shields flared bright, pushing back corruption. "Look at you," Vex taunted, circling them. "The great Alpha Prince, hiding behind an Omega female. Pathetic. She makes you weak, Calder. Without her, you would be stronger, faster, worthy of the throne. You know nothing," Calder snarled. But Sibylla felt his doubt through their connection. The fear that maybe Vex was right, that she was a liability he could not afford. Vex sensed it too. He grinned, all sharp teeth and malice. "Let me prove it to you." He gathered power, more than he had used yet, shadow coalescing into a massive spear of pure darkness. Then he hurled it directly at Sibylla. Time seemed to slow. Sibylla saw the attack coming, knew her shields would not be strong enough to stop something that concentrated. She began to dive aside, knowing she would be too slow. Calder was faster. He moved between them in a blur of motion, taking the full force of the shadow spear directly to his chest. The impact drove him back 3 steps, dark corruption spreading from the wound like spilled ink. "Calder!" Sibylla screamed. He stayed on his feet through sheer will, one hand pressed to the spreading darkness, the other extended toward her in a gesture that said, "Stay back." Blood, so dark it looked black, dripped between his fingers. "Run," he gasped. "Sibylla, run." She did not run. She could not. Instead, she moved to his side, pressing her hands over his. "Never. We fight together or we fall together." "How touching," Vex laughed. "You will both fall then." He advanced, preparing to finish what he had started. But something was happening. Where Sibylla's hands touched Calder's wound, light began to bloom. Not the aggressive shield she had been using, but something gentler, healing light. Warm and alive, the connection between them. That proto-mate bond that had been growing stronger throughout their journey, suddenly blazed to full brilliance. She felt his pain as her own, his fear, his love, and she pushed back, pouring her moonsinger magic directly into him through their link. The shadow corruption in his wound began to recede, burned away by lunar fire. Calder's eyes snapped to hers, golden and blazing with sudden understanding. "You are not my weakness. You are my strength." The transformation that took him was unlike anything Sibylla had ever witnessed. His body shifted, bones realigning, muscles expanding. But his fur, when it emerged, was not the solid black of most alphas. Silver threaded through it in intricate patterns, moonlight woven into shadow. His eyes glowed with that same merged power, gold and silver combined. The wolf that stood before Vex was massive, beautiful, and absolutely terrifying. Vex's confidence flickered for the first time. Impossible. That transformation should have killed you in your weakened state. Calder's response was a roar that shook the cavern. Then he attacked. The fight that followed was brutal and primal. Vex threw everything he had at Calder, shadow magic that could have killed a normal wolf 10 times over. But Calder was no longer weakened or unstable. Sibylla's power flowed through him continuously, stabilizing and amplifying his own. When Vex created tentacles of living shadow to restrain him, Sibylla destroyed them with bursts of moonlight. When Calder's claws tore through Vex's corrupted flesh, she burned the wounds so they could not heal with stolen magic. They were not 2 fighters in the same space. They were one force, perfectly synchronized. Vex realized too late that he had underestimated them. He tried to flee, but Calder was faster. The alpha wolf caught him by the throat, bearing him to the ground with crushing force. "This is for my father." Calder's voice emerged as a growl even in wolf form. For every innocent you corrupted. For daring to touch what is mine." His jaws closed. Vex's scream cut off abruptly in a spray of blood. But even as Vex died, his corrupted magic tried to regenerate him. Sibylla would not allow it. She placed both hands on the consigliero's chest and channeled pure moonlight directly into the source of his corruption. The shadow magic burned away like fog in sunlight, taking Vex's stolen power with it. His body went still, truly dead this time. As the echo of battle faded, something miraculous happened. The ritual circle broke, and the souls Vex had trapped were finally freed. Sibylla saw them as translucent forms rising toward the cavern ceiling. Last among them was Godric, his spirit whole and at peace. The former Alpha King looked at his son with pride. He mouthed words Sibylla could not hear, but Calder clearly understood. Then Godric's spirit dissolved into golden light that faded gently away. Calder transformed back to human form. Without the adrenaline of battle sustaining him, the exertion and remaining damage from the shadow spear caught up instantly. His knees buckled. Sibylla caught him. Though they both ended up on the cavern floor, his head was heavy against her shoulder, his breathing labored. "Calder, stay with me," she begged, feeling his strength fading through their connection. "Tired," he mumbled. "So tired. But we won." "We won," she agreed, tears streaming down her face. "So you cannot leave me now. Do you understand? You cannot." His hand found hers, squeeze weak. "Not leaving, just need to rest." But she could feel the truth through their bond. The shadow spear had done more damage than her healing could fix. The corruption was gone, but the wound it left behind was draining him. Without intervention, he would slip away within minutes. Instinct guided her. Her mother's words from the dungeon cell echoed in her mind. When Blood Moonsinger touches Alpha True under full moon, proto-mate bond forms, but completing the mate bond required the claiming bite. "Calder," she said urgently, pulling his head up so he had to look at her. "You need to bite me. Complete the mate bond. It will let us share life force. Let me give you what you need to survive." His eyes widened slightly. "That is permanent. Binding for life. You should not choose that just to save me. I am not choosing it just to save you, you impossible man. I am choosing it because I love you. Because you are mine and I am yours, and I am not letting death take you from me twice." She tilted her head, exposing her throat. "Bite me. Now. That is an order." Despite everything, he smiled. "You cannot give me orders. I am going to be Alpha King, and I am going to be your mate. So bite me before I change my mind." He did not need further encouragement. His hand cupped the back of her head, tilting it further. His lips brushed her throat, gentle for just a moment. Then his canines lengthened, and he bit down exactly where her pulse beat strongest. Pain flared bright and sharp. Then it transformed into something else entirely. Pleasure so intense it bordered on overwhelming. Power flowing between them in a circuit that grew stronger with each heartbeat. His pain became hers. Her strength became his. Until neither could tell where one ended and the other began. The claiming mark burned on her throat as it formed. Silver and gold intertwined in a pattern unique to them. Through it, she felt everything he felt. The wound in his chest closing, healed by her magic channeling directly through their bond. His exhaustion lifting as her vitality fed into him. His love, vast and consuming and entirely hers. When he finally pulled back, they were both gasping. The mark on her neck gleamed in the dim light, beautiful and permanent. He traced it with shaking fingers, awe in his expression. "My mate," he breathed. "Mine. Yours," she confirmed. "As you are mine." They held each other in the aftermath, surrounded by the remnants of battle, but untouched by the darkness. Two souls joined as one, strong enough together to face whatever came next. Chapter 8. Crown and Destiny. They rested in a remote mountain village for 3 days, letting their shared bond knit flesh and spirit alike before returning to Ravenspire, bringing Vex's head as proof of their victory. The council had assembled in the Great Hall. their faces reflecting uncertainty and trepidation. When Calder and Sibylla entered, the claiming mark on her throat visible to all, a ripple of shock moved through the gathered shifters. "Prince Calder," one of the elder councilmen began, his voice tight with disapproval. "We are grateful you survived the hunt. However, we must address this irregularity. You have claimed an Omega as your mate. This breaks centuries of tradition." Calder's hand found Sibylla's, his fingers threading through hers in a gesture of solidarity that everyone could see. "Sibylla proved her worth by saving my life when all of you declared me dead. She carries Moonsinger magic that broke shadow spells none of you could even detect. She fought at my side and helped destroy the traitor who murdered my father. She is my fated mate, chosen by the goddess and by me. The mate bond is sacred and irreversible. This discussion is finished." "But the kingdom needs a strong Luna," another council member protested. "Someone of proper bloodline who can..." "Someone who can what?" Calder's voice carried alpha command that made the walls seem to vibrate. "Heal deadly wounds with moonlight, sense dark magic before it strikes, stand against shadow corruption and emerge victorious. Sibylla has done all of these things. She is Moonsinger, blessed by the goddess herself with magic we thought lost forever. Anyone who questions her worth questions my judgment. Anyone who questions my judgment can challenge me directly." The hall fell into heavy silence. No one moved to challenge him, but the silence was broken by the arrival of 3 unfamiliar alphas. They entered with the arrogance of powerful males who had never been refused anything. Sibylla felt Calder tense beside her, his protective instincts immediately rising. "I am Ulrich of the Northern Territories," the largest announced, his voice booming. "I am Fennec of the Eastern Plains," said the second, his eyes calculating and cold. "I am Maddox of the Southern Mountains," the third finished, his scarred face twisted into something resembling a sneer. "We have come to challenge your claim to the throne," Ulrich continued. "An alpha who mates with weak Omega blood is not fit to rule all shifters. We invoke the right of trial by combat." Calder's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I accept your challenges. When do we begin?" The first combat took place the following dawn. Ulrich was massive, his wolf form nearly as large as Calder's transformed state. They circled each other in the ritual combat ring, while the entire pack watched from the surrounding stands. The fight was brutal. Ulrich's strength was undeniable, his movements efficient and deadly. But midway through the battle, Sibylla felt something wrong through her bond with Calder, a subtle weakening that came not from his own exhaustion, but from outside interference. Her Moonsinger senses detected it immediately. Hidden among the spectators, a robed figure was chanting, dark magic designed to drain Calder's strength without being obviously visible. One of Vex's remaining conspirators. "Calder," she projected through their mate bond, her voice clear in his mind. "Left side, 3rd row. Shadow magic draining you." His eyes flicked to where she indicated, spotting the threat. In one smooth motion, he feinted left, forcing Ulrich to turn, exposing the hidden mage to Calder's view. Sibylla raised her hand, and a beam of moonlight shot from her palm, striking the conspirator and disrupting his spell. The mage fell, his treachery exposed. Guards seized him immediately. Without the magical interference, Calder's natural strength reasserted itself. Within minutes, he had Ulrich pinned, the Northern Alpha forced to submit or die. Ulrich chose submission, baring his throat in the traditional gesture of defeat. "I acknowledge your victory," Ulrich gasped. "You and your mate fight as one. I withdraw my challenge." Fennec's attempt was more insidious. The night before his scheduled combat, Sibylla woke with a sudden, visceral wrongness churning in her stomach. Through the mate bond, she felt Calder's distress. She found him in his chambers, pale and sweating. On the table sat a half-empty goblet of wine. "Poison," she breathed, her Moonsinger senses detecting the corruption immediately. She grabbed his face. "Who gave you this wine?" "Fennec's servant brought it as a gift of goodwill before tomorrow's combat." Calder's voice was strained. "I only had a few sips before I felt wrong." Sibylla's hands glowed with healing light as she placed them on his chest, drawing the poison out through their bond. It was agonizing work, the toxin fighting against her magic. but she persisted. When the last of it was purged, Calder pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. "You saved me again," he murmured against her hair. "Always," she promised. The next morning, Calder brought the poisoned goblet before the council and the gathered challengers. "Fennec of the Eastern Plains attempted to murder me with poison rather than face me honorably in combat. By the laws of our people, he forfeits his right to challenge and faces exile for attempting to kill an alpha through cowardice." Fennec's face went white, then red with rage. But he could not deny the evidence. Guards escorted him from Ravenspire in disgrace, never to return. That left only Maddox. The Southern Alpha was different from the others. Older, scarred, and cunning in ways that spoke of decades of survival through intelligence rather than brute force. When they faced each other in the combat ring, Maddox pulled an ancient amulet from beneath his shirt. Power radiated from it, unnatural and amplifying. Maddox's form swelled, his strength multiplied far beyond what any normal wolf could achieve. A magical artifact, Sibylla identified immediately, her voice carrying to Calder through their bond. "He is cheating, using old magic to enhance himself. Can you counter it?" "I can destroy it. But I need a clear shot." The fight that followed was the most dangerous yet. Maddox's amplified strength let him land blows that would have killed a lesser wolf. Calder took damage, his ribs cracking, blood flowing from deep gashes. But he fought with the patience of a true warrior, creating openings, forcing Maddox to overextend. When the moment came, Calder grabbed Maddox's arm and twisted, exposing the amulet hanging around his neck. Sibylla's moonlight struck true, shattering the artifact into dust. Without its power, Maddox was just an aging alpha facing a prime warrior in his peak. The fight ended quickly after that, Calder's jaws closing around Maddox's throat in a hold that promised death if the Southern Alpha did not yield. "I submit," Maddox choked out. "You have won fairly. I acknowledge your right to rule." The pack erupted in howls of approval. They had witnessed 3 challenges, and in each, Calder and Sibylla had proven themselves superior, not just individually, but as a unified force. The coronation took place under the full moon 2 nights later. The entire kingdom gathered in the castle's great courtyard, where an ancient stone dais had been prepared. Calder stood at its center in ceremonial armor, his dark hair unbound, his bearing regal. When they called Sibylla forward to stand beside him, she wore a gown of silver that seemed to capture moonlight itself. Her claiming mark was displayed proudly, no longer hidden in shame. The high priestess, an ancient female whose eyes held centuries of wisdom, raised her hands. "Calder, son of Godric, do you swear to protect all shifters in this kingdom, to lead with strength and wisdom, to honor the goddess in all your actions?" "I swear it." Calder's voice rang out clear and strong. "Sibylla, daughter of Alara, blessed moon singer, do you swear to stand beside him, to use your gifts for the good of all, to be Luna Queen to his Alpha King?" "I swear it," Sibylla answered, her voice steady despite her racing heart. They drank from the sacred chalice, blood and wine mixed, symbolizing their commitment to the pack. When the priestess placed the crown upon Calder's head, and then a smaller but equally beautiful crown upon Sibylla's, something miraculous happened. Moonlight descended in a solid column, so bright it turned night into day. Everyone present felt the presence of something divine, ancient, and utterly powerful. The goddess herself manifested as a translucent figure of impossible beauty, her voice echoing in every mind simultaneously. "You are my will made flesh. Govern with strength tempered by compassion. You have my blessing, my children." Then she faded, leaving behind a silence filled with awe. No one would ever question Sibylla's right to stand as Luna Queen after that. The reforms began immediately. Calder's first decree abolished discrimination based on Omega bloodline strength. His second decree established legal protections for fated mate bonds regardless of rank. His third decree appointed Alara as the royal advisor on ancient magic and lost bloodlines, giving her a seat on the council. Torrin began training under the kingdom's best warriors, his lack of transformation no longer seen as a disability, but as an opportunity to develop other skills. The changes rippled through Ravenspire, shifting centuries of rigid hierarchy toward something more balanced and just. 6 months later, Sibylla stood on the balcony of their private chambers, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Her hand rested on her swollen belly, where their daughter grew strong and healthy. Calder appeared behind her, his arms encircling her waist, his large hands covering hers over their child. Through the mate bond, she felt his wonder, his joy, his absolute contentment. "I can feel her," he murmured, pressing a kiss to Sibylla's temple. "Her presence is like sunlight and moonlight combined." "She will be strong," Sibylla agreed. "Alpha and Moonsinger blood united. The first of a new generation." "Do you ever regret it?" Calder asked quietly. "Everything changed so quickly. From Omega Healer in the forest to Luna Queen. Do you miss the simplicity of your old life?" Sibylla turned in his arms, meeting his golden eyes that still made her heart race. "I miss nothing. That life was waiting, Calder. Waiting for you to come back to me. Waiting for this." She placed his hand more firmly over their daughter. "This is what I was always meant for. Not hiding in the forest, but standing beside you. Fighting beside you. Ruling beside you." "My little healer," he said softly, using the childhood nickname that still made her smile. "My fierce, brave, impossible mate." "Your mate," she confirmed. "Always yours, as you are always mine." As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, they stood together, two souls bound by fate and choice, by magic and love. The kingdom they governed together was stronger for their union, more just, more balanced. Everything had begun with a heartbeat she alone could hear when the world believed him dead. That impossible connection had led to this moment, to this life, to this love that would endure through whatever challenges the future might bring. They had found each other against all odds, had fought through death and dark magic and tradition that tried to keep them apart, and they had won. Together, they would build a future worthy of the daughter growing beneath their joined hands. A future where strength came in many forms, where love mattered more than bloodlines, where two souls could find each other across 12 years of separation and recognize home. The moon rose full and bright over Ravenspire, blessing them with silver light. And in that moment, everything was exactly as it should be.